Those are the best scenes from our choices of some of the 10 best films of 1980. Films with everything from car crashes to country music. Films with locations as varied as suburban Chicago and a deserted island in the Mediterranean. Across the aisle from me, Roger Ebert, film critic of the Chicago Sun-Times.
And this is Gene Siskel, film critic of the Chicago Tribune. Well, choosing the year's best films is an annual ritual for film critics, even after years like 1980, which was one of the worst in recent history for great or even for good movies. Still, I think we have both come up with lists of movies that we think will stand the test of time. How do you make a top 10 list? My approach is pretty basic. I go through all of my reviews of the new movies that opened during the year, 150 movies or so, find the ones that stand out from the crowd, the ones that had style and class and originality. And that's certainly true of our first film, Coal Miner's Daughter, a film that made both of our lists.
Well, Roger, Coal Miner's Daughter made my top 10 list because it's so much more than a standard show business biography, even though it is the biography of country singing star Loretta Lynn. What makes this film special is its rich sense of place, the rural South, and the way it honors the concept of the family, the impoverished but strong family that produced Loretta Lynn. At the center of the film is actress Sissy Spacek, utterly convincing in her portrayal of Loretta Lynn from age 13 to 35. Here she is in her first public performance.
1, 2, 3, 4, 1.
That was Sissy Spacek doing her own singing, which is remarkably good throughout the film. For me, she gives the year's best performance by an actress, and I'm really impressed. She's acting while singing, and she's not a singer. She's great.
You know, I wouldn't be surprised if she won an Academy Award this year for that performance. But there was a funny thing while I was watching that and her singing. I was thinking, we're going to look at a lot of good movies on this program,
Right.
and I admire them all. Some of them I think are great classics that will stand the test of time. It's funny, if I had to go see a movie after this show, I think I'd like to see Coal Miner's Daughter. That clip just brought back a lot of good memories for me.
What it brings back for me is the early part of the film. We've had a lot of movies set in the South recently. Most of them involve Burt Reynolds drinking beer and crashing into somebody's car. Here's a film that really goes back, looking for the roots of country music. It's made by an Englishman, Michael Apted. He really made a wonderful film that really loves the area of the South that he shot, Butcher Holler back there. It's very well done. I think I understand country music more because I saw this film. So I think it really honors its subject.
You know, when the picture first came out last winter, I gave it a good review, and I thought it was a good movie at that time, but not a great movie. The funny thing is, as months have gone by and people have said, what movies did you like, what performances did you remember? Coal Miner's Daughter is one that really grew in my memory and in my imagination. So, both of our lists, right?
Okay.
The number 3 film on my list of 1980s best films is Kagemusha, an epic samurai drama made by Akira Kurosawa, who is one of the world's greatest living directors. Kagemusha is the story of a common thief who becomes a stand-in for a warlord, and in this scene, he rides out to inspect the battlefield after a devastating defeat. panorama of death in that scene. What's most interesting about Kagemusha is that this movie does not glorify the adventures of the samurai, and it doesn't portray them as courageous, heroic warriors. In fact, and this is amazing, the whole movie doesn't even have one single shot of individual samurai in hand-to-hand combat. Instead, Kurosawa shot all of the battle scenes from a distance. He seems to be portraying the samurai code as a mass state of mind, a glamorous herd instinct rather than as a means of achieving individual greatness for one warrior. Kagemusha is an epic film that's thought-provoking and breathtakingly beautiful.
Well, I agree with you, Roger, and the thing of you calling it an epic, this is a true epic. You know, we haven't seen these kinds of films. This is made on the scale of Lawrence of Arabia. This is a grand, grand film. At the same time, it is a film full of ideas, and you've mentioned one of them about rethinking the samurai idea. I think the film also has something to say about leadership. See, all the people in this film want is all the characters they want is a symbol. They just want a guy up there who looks like the leader. I think what Kurosawa is saying, that what we really want in our leaders, and this of course would apply to our country changing leaders, is a symbol. And I think that's honest, refreshing, and provocative.
If he looks right, he's on the right horse, and he has the right costume, he must be okay, right?
I agree.
What's fascinating to me about Kurosawa at the age of 70 is here's the guy who introduced the West to the idea of samurai in the first place. For most of us, our first samurai movies were Kurosawa films like Yojimbo and the Seven Samurai.
Right.
Now he's coming back at the age of 70 and saying, hey, this was kind of a social tool. This was a tool of war to sell all these guys the idea of samurai greatness. They were out there thinking they were individual heroes, and actually they were just pawns in a struggle. It's very interesting.
It's a fine, fine film. My next choice is one of the most deeply emotional films I've ever experienced. It's Romano Olmi's The Tree of Wooden Clogs, a recreation of village life in Italy at the turn of the century. It's the story of people so poor that one of the peasants rebels against a rich landowner and commits the crime of cutting down one of the landowner's trees in order to make a wooden clog for his son. As he carves the clog, he says the rosary, praying that the landlord won't discover his theft. It's a powerful moment all over a single piece of wood.
Santa Maria, Mater Dei, pro nobis peccatoribus, et in hora mortis nostre. Amen. Santa Maria, Mater Dei, pro nobis peccatoribus, et in hora mortis nostre. Amen. Santa Maria, Mater Dei, pro nobis peccatoribus, et in hora mortis nostre. Amen.
This is a film that really makes us hate the economic class divisions that separate us. It's full of the kind of small, universal emotions that European directors typically elevate into grand drama, whereas American filmmakers so often think for a movie to be grand, it has to feature spectacular action and larger-than-life characters. I love this film. It creates a whole world. It's remarkable.
I also remember it with a great deal of respect. I felt that perhaps the director was a little bit too devout in the presence of the nobility of poverty and all that sort of thing, and yet I remember the images from this film so clearly. Olmi had a year to shoot this film. He went back to the same location for the different seasons. You see the fields frozen over, then you see the spring coming, the summer. You see the boy from one farm coming over to court the girl from another farm. The way the peasants lived, almost in the same buildings with their animals, with their livestock.
See, even as
it's a great portrait of that life.
Even as you talk about it now, you're doing what I think runs through so many of our films. You're recreating the world as you talk about it. That's what these people do who make these films and separate them out from the junk we see. The junk we see normally, you can tell it's a movie, you know when they shot this and this line is designed to get that. Here's a movie that just creates a whole world. This is going to run throughout all the show, I think. It's a fabulous film.
It's a good point. Well, how about from everyday life in Italy to everyday life in Lake Forest, Illinois? This next film made both of our lists, and it's called Ordinary People. Actor Robert Redford's first film as a director. It's an uncommonly sensitive drama about a period of emotional crisis in an upper-middle-class American family. Mary Tyler Moore and Donald Sutherland play the parents, and here they are, on vacation in Texas, fighting about the emotionally disturbed teenage son they've left behind in Chicago.
Hey, can we have a little drink before we head back?
Drink, yes. Little, no.
Yeah.
What'd you get, Cal? What'd you get?
Finish what?
6. What you started?
What I started?
What you started?
There's no point in discussing
I think
it.
there's a point.
He controls you even when you're 2,000 miles
He
away.
isn't the problem.
Isn't he?
No, he isn't. Now let's talk about what's really bothering you.
No, let's talk about what's bothering you. Because that's what you want, isn't it?
Jesus, what have I done to make you so angry with me?
It's not what you've done. It's what you think I've done. You blame me for the whole thing.
But can't you see anything except in terms of how it affects you?
No, I can't. And neither can you, and neither can anybody else. Only maybe I'm just a little more honest about
Well,
it.
stop being so damned honest and start being a little generous and start thinking about him for a
I don't know
while.
what it is he expects from me. I never have known.
Well, I'll tell you what he expects.
What? He wants me to throw my arms around him every time he passes an exam? Well, I can't do it. I cannot respond when someone says, here, I just did this great thing. Love me. I can't.
All he wants is to know that you don't hate him. That's
Hate
it.
him? God, how could I hate him? Mothers don't hate their sons. Is that what he told you? Do you see how you accept what he says with no questions, and you can't do the same thing
I'm
for
just
me,
trying
can
to
you?
keep this family
God, I
together.
don't know what anyone wants from me anymore.
Nobody wants anything from us.
Listen, look.
There's real hurt in the air there. What I admire most about Ordinary People is that it believes it really is within the power of the characters in that film to help themselves get better, or for that matter, to get worse. The mother, played by Mary Tyler Moore, is unable to face the fact that her family is less than perfect, so she finally has to run away. But the father and the son do get better, and the movie shows how a family can help its members to learn to grow, change, and love.
Well, you picked my favorite scene in that movie, and it's an exceptional film. I love the location that director Robert Redford picked for that fight. A golf course, a luxurious golf course, the American dream, and he's showing what's really under there, some breaking apart, hard emotions. You can see in that one scene, it's so beautifully written, the years that have led up to that kind of a battle. This is a wonderful film about life as it is lived by people. I think it's terrific.
You know, I was thinking back to the show we did a year ago on the 10 best films of last year, and our best film that year, I think, was Kramer versus Kramer.
right.
Here's another very good one about the same sort of milieu, the same kinds of people, and it goes underneath that wonderful exterior to show basic human problems that everybody can understand.
These are great films, and I wish they were the standard of the American film industry. My next choice is a controversial one. Controversial because a lot of people I know would not only not put the Blues Brothers on their top 10 list, they might put it on their 10 worst list. Obviously, I disagree. I found the Blues Brothers to be a wonderful mix of action, music, and comedy. Here's one of my favorite scenes in the film. It takes place in a South Side Chicago diner as John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd, the Blues Brothers, attempt to persuade an old musician friend to help them raise some money to save an orphanage. The musician's wife, Aretha Franklin, objects.
Would it make you feel any better if you knew that what we're asking Matt here to do is a holy thing?
You see, we're on a mission from God.
Don't you blaspheme in here. Don't you blaspheme in here. Now, this is my man. This is my restaurant. You two are going to just walk right out that door without your dry white toast, without your 4 fried chickens, and without Mad Guitar Murphy.
Now, you listen to me. I love you, but I'm the man and you're the woman, and I'll make the decisions concerning my life.
You better think about what you're saying. You better think about the consequences of your actions.
Oh, shut up, woman.
You better think about what you're trying to do to me, yeah. Think. Let your mind go, let yourself be free. Let's go bang, let's go away on the wag wing. I didn't even know you couldn't have been too much more than 10. Just stop. I ain't no psychiatrist, I ain't no doctor with degrees. It don't take too much IQ to see what you're doing to me. You better think about what you're trying to do to me. Think. Let your mind go, let yourself be free. Oh, freedom, 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 yeah, freedom, 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 oh, freedom. Hey, think about it. You think about it. There ain't nothing you could ask I can answer you without. I was gonna change. I'm not even keep doing things I know. Hey, feel like what you're trying to do to me.
Spectacular. That's the way to shoot a musical. Take a common location and make it explode with music. The Blues Brothers is full of scenes like that one, energetic scenes that express the joy and energy of big American cities. I thought this was one of the very few big-scale movies in 1980 that worked. I had a good time from beginning to end.
I had a good time, too. I thought the movie was a lot of fun. I didn't put it on my best 10 list, and I'll tell you why. I thought it was too overblown. I loved Belushi, I loved Aykroyd, I loved the music, Aretha Franklin, Ray Charles. But if it's funny to have one squad car run into another squad car, it's not necessarily funnier to have 20 squad cars run into 20 other squad cars. I didn't think it was necessary to go to those extremes.
Well, I like the bigness of it. I like the bigness of the explosions, and I like the bigness of the crashes. I was really amazed that we've had Belushi and Aykroyd made a lousy big film, 1941, a year ago. This one, I think, worked from beginning to end.
Okay, well, that's a film that's only on your list. Here's a film that's only on my list. Paul Schrader's American Gigolo stars Richard Gere as a Beverly Hills escort for hire who makes his living as the paid lover of rich women. The movie is a fascinating study of his lifestyle, of his clothes, his car, the whole world he inhabits. And then it shows that world falling apart when real emotions begin to sneak into it. This is a scene from early in the film showing Richard Gere talking to Lauren Hutton. She's the wife of a rich state senator. He thinks she's a possible client. Their verbal sparring here is fascinating.
Why did you come on to me?
Like I said, I made a mistake. I heard you speaking French. Often in these big hotels, you run into women from foreign countries who may need a translator or a guide.
And they hire you.
Yes.
How many languages do you speak?
5 or 6.
Plus the international language.
That's right.
Well, now, you're something really special, aren't you?
You're one to talk. I saw you sitting here. You wanted me to come over. I came over. I know what I see.
How much would you have charged me?
As what? Translator or guide?
No. Just one time.
Now, you've made a mistake. I don't do that.
You don't, huh? I know what I see, too.
Well, it looks like they're arriving at a pretty basic understanding there. There's incredible eroticism in that scene. But then something happens they don't expect to happen. They really do fall in love with one another, and that emotion demolishes the islands of security the characters have built around themselves. American Gigolo is a movie about love as a subversive force, undermining a materialistic approach to life.
I'm glad you picked the film. It made my list of runners-up, and I like this director, Paul Schrader. He makes interesting films about American cities, this time Beverly Hills. It's like he took a jewel, a diamond, lifted it up and found a lot of slimy creatures crawling around in those streets. And when he shows us those streets in daylight, it even looks like nighttime. He filters it. It's a real tough look at that town. I like it.
You mentioned Paul Schrader. I think he's a name that a lot of people aren't familiar with yet, and yet he's one of the best directors in Hollywood.
I agree.
He directed Hardcore and Blue Collar. He wrote the screenplay for Martin Scorsese's Taxi Driver, co-wrote the screenplay for Scorsese's new film, Raging Bull. He's really a very talented young filmmaker.
That's quite a list. And speaking of Raging Bull, finally, here is my choice for the #1, the year's best film. It is Raging Bull, the story of fighter Jake LaMotta, as played by Robert De Niro and told by director Martin Scorsese. It's really the story of urban violence and how it springs from people who know no other way of getting themselves heard. Here's a scene that shows LaMotta's trigger-quick temper. His second wife, Vicky, merely says to LaMotta that the next fighter he's scheduled to meet is good-looking. That one comment sends him into a paranoid, jealous rage.
What's the problem? Stop eating, that's all. You can do it. You don't understand anything. Do you understand that?
You know, Joey's right. This Gennaro is an up-and-coming fighter. He's good-looking, he's popular. We beat him now.
Excuse me. What do you mean good-looking?
I'm not saying good-looking, I'm saying popular. If you win...
What were you to say, good-looking?
I didn't say anything. I'm just telling you Joey's right.
What are you, an authority or what?
Get out of here.
Get out of here. Take the baby and get out of here. Everybody, all the sons an authority about this. She's telling me, where'd she find out he's good looking, first of all?
And here, in his fight against that good-looking face, LaMotta flies into a bestial rage and pummels the fighter's face as director Martin Scorsese shows us in unrelenting, bloody detail exactly what boxing is about. Robert De Niro should win the Oscar in March for the best performance by an actor, and don't be surprised if Kathy Moriarty, who played Vicky LaMotta in that first scene, is at least nominated. Hers is a superb film debut in an exciting American film that is made, I think, with more artistry in every frame, including those boxing scenes, more artistry than any other film this year.
I'm in total agreement with you, and what a portrait of a character by Robert De Niro. You know, a lot of these boxing movies have had all kinds of Freudian things at the beginning, how his parents treated him and so forth. The priest dropped him when he was baptized and things like that. This movie is very direct. Here's a man who is filled with great insecurity, with great rages, with great violence, can't deal with anyone, takes it out in the ring. It's very direct, unremitting, and unforgettable.
That's where he is most comfortable, in the ring. A superb performance. Love these fight scenes more than Rocky, more artful, although I like Rocky. This is really great stuff, I think.
Okay, we're in agreement. My #1 film of the year, really one of my great all-time movie-going experiences, is The Black Stallion, which was directed by Carol Ballard. It begins with a sensational storm at sea and a fiery shipwreck, and then there's a small boy whose life is saved by a black stallion that carries him ashore to a deserted island. They're the only two survivors, and in this magnificent scene, they learn to know and to trust one another. There's a stretch of about 40 minutes like that in this film where there's hardly any dialogue, when the whole story is told in great images like those we just saw, as a friendship develops between that boy and that horse. The Black Stallion is great movie making. It demonstrates that even in cynical 1980, a G-rated movie could tell a simple and innocent story and still be a powerful narrative.
Well, it's a wonderful film, a great film for families and for children to see. In that scene, I think you get some of the magic of the first half of the movie with that horse, the sound, with the sound effects of it, those lips, the boy. The horse comes alive. The horse is as real a character as the boy.
Absolutely.
We respect nature so much more because we see it. What a wonderful thing for a child to see in a movie.
You know, I've seen this movie twice with kids in the audience, and oftentimes with children's movies, the kids are running up and down the aisle and fighting with their little brothers and sisters because they're bored by what's on the screen.
Not this one.
With this film, they were sitting there mesmerized. It was like an education for them and how great a movie could be.
I agree with you. Okay, we've taken a look at some of our favorite films of the year. Now let's look through our entire lists. Here is my list of the year's top 10 films, beginning with Robert De Niro's knockout performance as fighter Jake LaMotta in Raging Bull. Second, Robert Redford film of Ordinary People. Third, Coal Miner's Daughter with Sissy Spacek as country singer Loretta Lynn. Fourth, The Tree of the Wooden Clogs, or Mono Olmi's portrait of an Italian peasant colony. Fifth, Kagemusha, Akira Kurosawa's 16th century Japanese samurai drama. Sixth, Being There with Peter Sellers as Chance the Gardener. This was a 1979 film as far as the Academy Awards were concerned, but except for a couple of cities, Being There played everywhere else in this country in 1980. Seventh, The Black Stallion, another 1979 film for the Oscars, but a 1980 film for most of the nation. Eighth, The Blues Brothers, an uproarious musical comedy with John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd. Ninth, The Great Santini with Robert Duvall as a concerned father we love to hate. 10th, The Stunt Man, a tricky mystery that celebrates the ways movies manipulate us.
Okay, Gene, that's your list. Here's my list of the year's 10 best films. First on my list is The Black Stallion, a visionary epic about a boy and a horse. In second place, Martin Scorsese's Raging Bull. Third place goes to Kagemusha, the thoughtful samurai drama. In fourth place, the late Peter Sellers in Being There. Fifth place goes to Robert Redford's Ordinary People. Number 6 is The Great Santini with Robert Duvall. Seventh place goes to The Empire Strikes Back, the Star Wars sequel. Number 8 stars Sissy Spacek and Coal Miner's Daughter. Number 9, American Gigolo with Richard Gere. And in 10th place, Best Boy, Ira Wall's documentary about his retarded cousin Philly and how he learns at the age of 52 how to go out in the world and be a little more independent.
So there you have it, Roger's Top 10 and mine, our choices for the best movies of 1980. Next week on Sneak Previews, we'll take a look at some of the worst films of 1980, the dogs of the year. Until then, see you at the movies.